Hey everybody, how y'all doing? Coach Alex here at Center for Blade Arts, and with me, I have got Coach Tyler.
Hey everyone, as usual, I'm getting ready to go right as it's time to go. You know me. But so today is the first of many, but hopefully not too many, of our live streams that are going to be a little shorter, and they're going to start 6 p.m. So if you missed the schedule, well, you're finding out now. These are going to be going live at 6 instead of 6:30, Monday through Thursday. So no Friday, Saturday, or Sunday stream, but we'll still be putting them on YouTube as usual and Instagram TV as usual, so you can go back and watch those. But these are going to start being more targeted for the Zoom classes that are beginning to run this week. So this is going to be the foil stream on Tuesdays, and then we have foil Zoom class on Wednesday. So if you're taking the Wednesday Zoom class, you're going to want to do this kind of as homework. So to do this stuff, optionally you can have a foil to do the stuff this week, but just to begin, we're going to do some attacking action, so it's not necessary, but down the line you'll probably want to find yourself a stick or something when we get into doing parries and other things as the weeks go on. All right, let's keep this short, or at least about a half hour is the goal, so that we get on to our next thing. So we're going to start with some cardio. I'm going to find myself, the timer. It's always something. Make sure I know what time it is. Because I have no internal clock. Well, that's not true. My internal clock is intermittent. Sometimes it's very accurate, sometimes not. But yeah. So how you doing, Alex?
Doing all right.
Good to hear. What's new for you?
Oh, not much. Spent Memorial Day with my family, walking around the parks, really.
Huh, that's an excellent thing to do.
Yeah.
I wish I had gotten outside a little more over the weekend, but that's okay.
It was good. Kind of sticky though.
Sticky, yeah.
Muggy, humid.
Yeah, I definitely felt greasy yesterday a little bit. I was just like, oh, I forgot what humidity was like when it's actually warm outside. Yeah. All right, so you got to get outside. You got to hang out with your family a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah. For those of you who don't want to just jog in place, if you've got a jump rope, you've got space to jump rope, you could jump rope. You can imagine, see, oh look, I'm doing my jump rope jog in place. Or you can jump rope, even if you don't have a jump rope. The rope just helps you keep time. And it's a little coordination thing. It forces you to keep your feet off the floor. You can pretend like they're made out of hot coals or something. You can do some jumping jacks if you want to. Just about anything that keeps you from standing still is what we're looking for. Just to start to get the blood pumping and your body to start all of the anabolic processes that help you work out. I know for some that are just kind of newer to fitness, this is a challenging part of the workout, just doing this alone. But it builds up a certain level of endurance. I was listening to a podcast today. That's going to shock exactly no one, but it was talking about strength adaptations in like newcomers to this particular one was like barbell fitness, but still, it was talking about adaptations in like a novice athlete versus an intermediate or an advanced athlete. It was super interesting. But the biggest thing was like someone who's new to fitness, you know, they can ride a bicycle and that will help improve their bench press to a certain point for a limited amount of time. Because any sort of new activity is going to give them those beginner gains that you hear about. But prescribing bicycling for barbell training obviously would be silly. But there are fitness advantages to doing any kind of training. All right, I forget where I was going with that. I mean, good thing too, because we're moving to the next thing. All right, so we're going to do our standing hamstring stretch. So I'm going to reach forward with one leg, the other leg's trailing, and so I can kind of pivot to the side so you can see how that split works. So I'm going to step out with one foot, and then I'm going to sit on my trailing leg. So I sit down, I go down, and through, and then come back up. Same thing on the other side. So I step out, I go down, through, and I can come back up. There we go. And we'll do this for maybe about a minute. Well, I already started the timer, so it's going to be less than a minute by the time, yeah. So, there we go. There we go. But, so more on that podcast that you might find interesting is it was, part of it was talking about how we landed as an industry, how we landed on like 5 to 8 reps being the like gold standard.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to speak up just a little bit? Some people say they're having a little trouble hearing.
Come closer.
Oh, okay. For that.
The closer you can be to me, the better.
Oh,
but
all
yeah,
right, sure.
I can talk up a bit. So the other interesting thing with that podcast is talking about how we landed as an industry on doing 5 to 8 repetitions as kind of the gold standard of fitness practice. On that note, we're going to switch to our quad stretch, and I'll tell you more. So for the quad stretch, we're going to do it. I'm going to give you 2 options. You can do it, if this works for you, you do this version. If it doesn't, you do the other. So you can bring your leg to your body, and if you have super tight quads, or if you have your legs are not super huge, or both, then this is usually great. Like right now, my quads are pretty tight, so I'm getting a pretty good stretch here. Whereas if you have really large legs, you may not be able to exert, you might not be able to move the legs to a point where your quads are actually getting stretched because they're running into each other. Or if you just got super flexible quads, that might not work. So on the other side, I'll show you the other version. So you go here, and you go out. So you can do the bow stretch instead of doing the just standard quadricep stretch. So I move my leg away. So I'll do that one. So in that fitness thing I was listening to, they're talking about, okay, so like how many reps is the number that's going to be the most effective? Go ahead and switch sides. If you're doing like strength training, right? So you can think of there being 2 different adaptations that your body can make with your muscles. You can either train for strength, or you can train for endurance. And then there's a continuum on that between those 2 points. Whether it's, you can be doing it more on the strength side or more on the endurance side. So I want you to think for a second, fencing, what is fencing? Is fencing endurance or is fencing strength? Think about it for a second while we're finishing out our stretch here. Last side, last rep. All right. So it sits a little bit in the middle. It's a little more on the endurance side of that continuum, but you know, it still has some strength components. It's not powerlifting, that's way over here. It's not marathon running, that's way over here. So we'll talk about that more while we do some lunges. So for our lunges, we're going to do standard lunges. So that's stepping out and then dropping the knee. This is optional. If it's not good for your knee, don't drop the knee. Simple. So, in order to determine whether something is pure endurance or if something is pure strength, you have to look at the amount of effort per repetition. So if something is high effort per repetition, it is a primarily strength-based exercise. And if it is a relatively low amount of effort per repetition, it is an endurance exercise. I mean, granted, there are factors that, you know, like becoming tired, you know, fatigue is a factor that increases the difficulty of an exercise over time. But if we start off at rep number 1 and we go, how much effort did that first one take? A lot or a little? So the first step of a run, when you're jogging or you're running, each individual step in a run is not a lot of effort on its own. It's very much a death by a million paper cuts kind of situation, where you become fatigued because you do something easy, you know, hundreds and hundreds of times. Whereas if you lift, you know, 500 pounds on a deadlift, you do that 2 times, and you're like, I am out of gas. I cannot do that a 3rd time. So that's at the complete opposite end of that continuum. So fencing, is not a fixed state exercise, which is what makes it so difficult in a lot of cases. Because you have to move between 2 different phases of activity. You have a preparatory phase where you are doing an endurance related exercise, so your footwork. And we'll talk more about that in a second once we're doing our hip circles. So we're going to do them inside to outside, and then we'll do them outside to inside. So we'll do a minute, we'll cook a minute each way. So we'll start in to out. So during the preparatory phase in fencing, you have your endurance exercises. So you're expending small amounts of energy to propel yourself forward or backwards to maintain distance. Does it tire you out? Yeah. If you come into the gym and you do 1 advance, are you exhausted? Absolutely not. Right? So we can agree that doing preparatory footwork is definitely an endurance-based activity because the effort is so low for 1 repetition. Now on the other side of that, we have like finishing an attack, doing an explosive attacking movement. If you do that eagerly, like especially like a flushing movement, you do like we did the other day on the live stream, a flushing movement is an explosive power-based movement. We're going to switch to doing outside, inside now. So that, you do a couple of those at maximum output, you're going to get really tired really fast. I had to, just to make it through the live stream and not, collapse in a pile of like wet goo, I had to, really tune down the amount of effort I was expending on the live stream just to like get through the exercises with you and still be able to talk. So on aggressive hitting actions, you have a very kind of strength-based execution. Is it barbell lifting level strength? Nope. No, it is not. It is not even close, but it is difficult. So depending on what phase of the activity we look at, is going to change what our answer to that question is. Fascinating. All right, on that note, we're going to do some preparatory footwork. So it's time for us to do some advancing and retreating. So I'll turn to the side so you can see what I'm doing. So for now, we're just going to do one advance and one retreat. If you have space, you could do multiple steps in a row in the same direction. That's up to you. If you're watching this on Instagram TV or on YouTube, you could definitely just kind of run this in the background and just go advance down the sidewalk or something. But if you're live at home with me right now, we're just going to do it this way. So we'll just in and out. So in a nutshell, so you have these endurance things. A race, you have like 20,000 steps in a race for an endurance activity, and then for like a personal best weightlifting attempt, that's going to be like 1 rep. That's the minimum. So for doing strength building exercises, we can probably all agree that each time you do something, you're going to lose maximum power, right? Like, let's say the load is relatively fixed. Like, let's say we use our body, for example, and we try and do something as powerful as we can. Maybe, let's say, you jump as high as you can. So the first one, or maybe the first, second, or third one would be your best. Maybe you need 1 or 2 to warm up, but then once you like nail your technique, boom, you get up there. You have your best attempt within the first couple, and then as you keep going, you go to say 5, 10, 15. By the time we got to 20 maximum height high jumps, you're not jumping that far. If we give you no rest. You just do them one after another. Just jump, 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 right? So at that point, the 20th rep and the 21st rep would probably be indistinguishable from each other because they're both like 2 inches off the ground. Probably. If you're really just going maximum effort there. Or if you need additional load to recreate maximum effort, then you maybe like have a weight vest on or something else. But we'll get to adaptation in a minute. All right, so we're going to do lunge and recover. So same forward-backward movement, but now leaving the back foot in place. So, in any case, so since we all can generally agree that at a certain point, the repetitions that you're doing are no longer getting worse. Like you've hit a point where you either can't do anymore because you're out of gas and the muscle can't do it, or you can sustain it, but if it's sustained, it's not going to really change from repetition to repetition beyond like the 20th one. So now we say, all right, well, what's halfway between 20 and 1, which is the lowest number, 10, okay? And then what's the kind of middle, 60% range in that? Because 10, we don't want to push people all the way to that 20th part. We want to be doing stuff halfway there. So we want to be under 10. So what's a good range under 10 where people are going to be doing their best work? They're going to be able to output their greatest amount of effort in a useful way without their technique suffering or anything like that. So then you get like 5 to 8. Because we can all agree that doing one, if you can do more than one, you could probably do at least 3. Most of the time, right? generally speaking. I mean, there'll be occasions like, yeah, I can do 2 pull-ups, but not 3 pull-ups. Sure, that's fine. But in any case, so that's how we get to that point there. All right, so now we're going to do 2 advances and 1 retreat. And then we'll do 2 retreats and 1 advance. So 2 advances forward, 1 retreat, and then 2 retreats back, 1 advance. We are going to pause in between each set of steps, just so it's distinct and you're not just doing 3 advances and 3 retreats the whole time. Okay, so we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There we go. Good. And if you want, you can pick one of these to do, and then maybe switch part of the way through. But I'd say that you can do them this way. All right. Oh yeah, adaptations. So with adaptations, with a novice lifter or a novice athlete, just about everything they do is going to create some adaptation in the body, provided they don't totally overdo it, and then get overly sore and injured. So as an athlete progresses, the body does not adapt to stress in the same way if the stress remains the same. A great way someone talked to me about this when I was lifting was talking to me about it like trying to go get tan. So imagine, if you will, there's a person who would like to become more tan. Now, a novice may decide that they're going to be committed to the cause. They're going to work on their tan every day and become the best person at becoming tan as a beginner that's ever been seen. And they go out, they spend 15 minutes facing up, they spend 15 minutes facing down, so they're out there a half hour every day without fail. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to get more tan. But are they going to keep getting more tan if they keep it exactly that way all the time? Like they're inside 23 and a half hours of the day, and then they go out to tan for a half hour. Interesting. So while we're thinking about that, we're going to do advanced lunge and retreat lunge. So we'll do one and then the other. Okay, so we'll start with advanced lunge. So eventually, this person who's doing their tanning, they're gonna stop getting more brown. If the human body reacted by producing more pigment at the same rate, everyone would be pitch black. But that's not the way it works. The body adapts to that stress that's being put on the body in a inverse curve kind of way, where over time it reacts less and less to the same kind of stress. And this applies both physically and even mentally in a lot of cases. So, what does our novice suntanner have to do in order to become more tan if they want to become a deep golden bronze? I'm not advocating for people going out and just sunbathing for the sake of sunbathing. If you're into that, go ahead. But if you get a weird mole, go check it out. Go to the doctor. But in any case, so that sunbather is going to need to, at some point, increase the amount of time that they're being exposed to the sun. in order to become more tan than they are at a certain point, or else they're going to continue to just stay the same. And eventually, they're going to need to be out there for hours on end, maybe 2 hours at the beach getting tan. But if a novice goes and does that, they're like, I'm going to do the best thing. I'm gonna jump in head first. I'm gonna tan for an hour. They're gonna get burnt, and that's not gonna be good for them. So your muscles are not too much different than that when it comes to like how you apply a progressive fitness plan to your development there. On that note, we are going to combine item 3 and item 4 on our list here. So that's double advanced retreat plus advanced lunge, and then we'll give each one of these 2 minutes to run. We're going to do double retreat advance retreat lunge. So first up, we'll do the forwards count. Okay, so advance, advance, retreat, advance, lunge, cover. Good. Oops. If you don't have tons of space, you can do this mostly in place. You'll move like an inch or two. It's actually harder than doing it with regular steps. So even if you have the space, it can be worth the challenge just to kind of go through that. So now turn around, so stay kind of in the center of the space here. Oh, right, so adaptations. So for our athletes that are trying to get stronger, as they get more experience, their routines, by necessity, have to become more complex in order to continue to adapt. And this is not just physical, this is also mental. So while it is good to work on fundamentals all the time, which I'm a big fan of, but you have to have adaptations inside of that to make it useful. And you can do that. You can change the amount of effort that you use. So you can do it more aggressively with your steps. You can do it lower. There's tons of ways you can make adaptations to simple things. But if you do things pretty much the same way you always do them, you're making such small incremental gains that as a more experienced fencer, you're not going to get them. You got to always be changing stuff about how you train so that you have to adapt to those changes. Okay, now it's time for us to do the same thing but backwards. So we'll do double retreat advance, retreat lunge, and then I think that's probably the thing. All right, so oh yeah, so how this all relates back. You thought I had lost you with the 5 to 8 thing. No, it all comes back to that. So 5 to 8 reps is generally the number of reps you can do useful work inside of if you're trying to get stronger at doing something. No more than 20, generally, unless you're trying to build long-term endurance, which in some cases you are. So inside of those 5 to 8 reps, or the 10 to 20 rep range, if you're working more on endurance, then you have to make adaptations to what you're doing inside of those repetitions in order to improve. And so those two things have to work synergistically together to create a training environment where you are improving as constantly as you can. So making adaptations to how you train and then doing them a useful amount. But all that being said, Uh, this all you need to take all this with a big grain of salt because, like I said at the beginning, fencing has a very important endurance component to it, and so for attacking actions, things that need to be explosive, yes, you are going to do things in a more limited rep range. And remember, you do 8 reps, that's not it. You also you do them in sets. So an 8 rep plan will often be inside of a plan with 5 sets of that activity, which will yield like 40 repetitions. And in larger volume things, we could be looking at like 20 reps with like 5 sets, which is 100. So, and that's not even breaking into like, actual endurance exercise where you're trying to go way beyond that, breaking out past 100. So, yeah, cool. All right, so that's it. That's about a half hour, give or take. So we're going to be doing our foil class tomorrow night, 7 p.m. If you still need to sign up for that, you can send me an email, or you can click the link in the bio once you exit out of this video, and that will bring you to the sign-up form. And if you're watching this on YouTube later, you can visit our Instagram or Facebook and get the link there, or email me, and I'll send you the link. So, all that stuff. And then I will see you, if I don't see you tomorrow night at the Zoom class, I will see you next week on Tuesday, 6 p.m. for the next foil live stream, once a week. All right, take care, everybody. See you soon.